Well, a very good day to our viewers, and thanks for joining us once again for another program of Empower Health, the program where we empower you to improve your overall health and well-being as we continue to have these very interesting discourses and conversations with Dr. Lionel Gaskin-Myers. Now, last day we began and we will continue today, our discussion on this rise, a disturbing trend it is, the rise in autism and, of course, Alzheimer's and, generally dementia. Neurological diseases. But, and we will continue, as I said before, but Doc, there is something that I have been saving for a very long time, a gem. And it's so ironical that you mention it. We've been talking about it in this program, this whole question of the use of hydrogenated oils and the deleterious effect that it is having on our collective health.
Yep.
And, I came across this article. It was from the Express, and that is to tell you how long ago I've had it. I said I have to share this gem with you on coconut oil. It says the surprise benefits of coconut oil, and I can understand why the headline is surprise benefits, because we're still surprised that this thing that we've been using all along and think it's
hundreds of years.
That's right. It comes around, as being a surprising revelation. And this was on Monday, the 23rd of June, 2014. It came from a website, and it's called Fat Loss, fatloss.com. I won't read the whole thing, but just
look at what it says here.
Yeah.
The group that ate coconut oil, as compared to the group that ate soybean oil, had in abdominal fat, they had a decrease in abdominal fat with coconut oil, and in the soybean actually showed a slight increase in belly fat.
Yes.
Additionally, right, the group that used coconut oil had an increased HDL, right, and a decreased LDL, while the soybean group has a decreased HDL and an increased LDL. Now, I would say that most doctors don't even know that.
Yes.
Right? So they say, if your HDL down, go and cook with coconut oil. So every time we dig up stuff, more and more, we're getting more and more information.
Yes.
So we have the nice thing, though.
And it said as a tool to drop extra abdominal fat, manage a healthy weight, and even as a way to treat obesity.
Listen, I keep saying, if you drink, and they have some nice coconut oil in the grocery these days.
Yes.
It's a one from Thailand. It's crystal clear and it's really pure. If you drink 2 tablespoons of that in the morning, what happens is, instead of the body burning sugar, the body is not basically a sugar burning operation.
Yes.
It is normally an oil burning operation.
Yes.
And
much like how our engine operates.
Yes. So when you take 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, and the liver absorbs it, and it almost immediately, within 10 or 15 minutes, turns it into ketones, which is like a high octane fuel that gets into the cell.
Yes.
Right.
Almost like a nitrate for cars.
Then what happens is, whereas when you get sugar, by 9 o'clock, you're on a sugar high at work. And then you go, so boom, and then by 11 o'clock, it's just and we go from hyperglycemic to hypoglycemic. When you take the coconut oil and the ketones get into your system, it doesn't have any hyper or hypo because you're not burning sugar. So it stays and it goes right through your lunchtime. So one of the things that some of my patients would tell me is, I don't feel hungry at lunchtime again. Why? Because the body has energy that is still burning. So besides the fact that it helps to burn off the fat, it also helps you to eat less and not feel that you're hungry.
That's right.
This whole thing is
But get this, I thought you would like this one. It says, for generations, island people considered it the cure for all illness and consumed the meat, milk, and coconut oil daily. Although this was high in saturated fat, Western conditions like diabetes, cancer, and heart disease were virtually unheard of. Something you've been saying all along.
Listen to this. Day before yesterday, I got my housekeeper to squeeze out, grate the coconut and squeeze it out. And she put it in a jar. So I went home Thursday night and I had it. So when I got up Friday morning, which was yesterday morning,
It came off the top of the
No. Shake it up. And I put it outside. And I got my little starter probiotics and I throw it in it. And I added a teaspoon of honey. just to give the bacteria them a little, right? And I put it down. So I came home last night, and I was in my bed, and I said, wait, I left my coconut milk out on the thing, you know, making yogurt. So I went downstairs, and when I opened it, man, it was fat and thick and creamy. And I take off a whole little bowl like like ice cream.
Right? You bring some for the boys today?
And I sat down and I ate that while in my bed watching a film. I said, whoa, this is really nice. Because when I went to the States, I noticed that they make yogurt with coconut milk, not cow's milk.
Or
So you don't have to worry about lactose.
Yes.
So I said, no, if they could do it, I could do it too. So I started making coconut milk yogurt. So for those of you out there, make your coconut milk and then go in the farm.
So you grate the coconut, you extract
the thing. Then get yourself a bottle of kefir from in the grocery.
Okay.
Take a little half a teaspoon of that, drop it in it, put a teaspoon of honey, that's to give them a little extra sugar, right? Pack it up and leave it on the counter for the whole day.
Yes.
And then by the time you come in the evening, you have like a little jello thing. And it tastes absolutely fantastic.
I could imagine, yes.
Right?
And it just continue a little bit.
Look at that.
Yeah.
All the things he has used it for: coughs,
constipation. Yes.
People don't know that if you drink coconut oil, you don't have everything is slip out.
Yes.
Malnutrition, skin infections because of the capric acid and the lauric acid in it, toothaches. Oil pulling. That's what they call it. For the audience, I was trying to remember just now what it was called. Where you put coconut oil in your mouth and you go.
Yes.
And you do that for about 15 minutes. And the capric acid and the lauric acid, which are powerful antibacterial and antiviral, sweep out all the bacteria from between your teeth.
Yes.
And they say when you finish with the amount of toxins you have to pull out, don't swallow it. Spit it out. Put a little bit of fresh one in your mouth and spit it out again.
Yes.
And that your toothache, the amount of rotten teeth that you have in your mouth will go down dramatically because of that treatment.
Yes.
In fact, it's one of the best kind of things you can use for cleaning your teeth after you brush it with a little.
They also talk about earaches and so on and more. And just to end on it, it says, because I'm skipping over, cheaper mass-produced hydrogenated foods replace traditional foods like the versatile and all-healing coconut oil that had kept the islanders healthy for generations. And for the first time ever, diseases that had become prevalent among Americans, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and so on, obesity, started to plague the island nations. Isn't that amazing?
So you could say, and they were prophets in the land because they came before. I don't know.
I said I couldn't miss not sharing that one with you. I've been holding it here for
that's good shit.
a long time.
That's
very
good
long time. I think we should make some copies and keep it. And yes, you know. But coming out of the program, as we get back into our substantive discussion of last time around, you know, there are two things. One, to get some inquiries about this. The word flocculate is the first time that I've heard it, and I was wondering if you could break it down.
You hadn't heard it either?
No.
But it's really a technical term.
Okay.
When you pump air with certain mixtures in it, and you kind of agitate the water.
Oh, okay.
Call it flocculate.
Okay.
So what it does is it helps to mix up everything together, and then you leave it to settle out. So that's what when they put the aluminium salts in there, they mix it, and it has the ability to grab the fine dirt and drop it out to a large extent, not totally.
Right.
So what it does, it saves on the fine filtering, which could be very tedious.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Right?
And someone was asking about the significance, because you mentioned it, about the pineal gland being represented on the Pope's staff. And it's its significance there.
We let out a whole thing there.
Yeah.
It's not only on the Pope's staff; it's also in the center in
St. Peter's Square.
St. Peter's Square. There's a fountain with the pine cone. Of course, what happens is that we have all these symbols around, and nobody ever explains what they are. Why would the Pope staff have a pineal gland placed on it?
Yeah.
Well, let's take a little moment and digress. And you see, we're talking about the pineal gland controlling the taking out of aluminum and mercury and all that out of the brain, causing the brain to function properly. But we haven't talked about the pineal gland. Now, the pineal gland is a peculiar gland in the sense that the senses, the light sensors in the eye look outwards, right? Inside the pineal gland, you have light sensors, but the light sensors look inwards.
Yeah.
So when you do so and you look outwards, here, you're trapped in time, in that you have to follow time. You have to wait on time. But you can move in space. You could get up from here and you could go up the road, and you will say, it will take me 15 minutes. So therefore, this one gives you depth perception of space, which allows you to appreciate space, but it locks you into time. When you go inside into your mind and you go into the pineal gland, and that is why one of the reasons why it's called the third eye, is because it looks inwards. It doesn't move time. It doesn't move space.
Yes. Yeah.
It moves time. So you could go into that pineal gland, and what you could do, you could move forward and backward in time. So having the ability inside to move backward and forward in time, and having the ability outside to move backward and forward in space, allows you to live in the future.
Interesting.
In other words, it allows you to go to God. Now, try and connect.
That is high.
Try and connect them two things together. Let me explain what I mean.
Yeah.
When you go into the Bible, and it says, first there was the darkness, and the darkness moved upon the waters, and God said, let there be light.
Yes, yes.
Now, if you could stop a minute and say, first they had the darkness. The darkness existed. And the darkness moved upon the water, so something moved in the darkness. And at the point where something moved in the darkness, then God said. So obviously, God is not the darkness. God is not the light. God is not the same. God way above all them things. So it come down and it descend. You know, so you're using the word it and not he. You use the term he when you're talking about God, when the movement is going forward in action. So light, leaving the darkness, is going out to impregnate a space to make life.
Yeah.
So that light moving forward and down and impregnating the space is a masculine action. It is just like your penis. It penetrates and it fecundates, if you want to call it. It takes, so it brings the idea. The thing that receives the idea and turn it into fact is the feminine. So what you're saying is that in order for us as human beings to exist and have a level of consciousness, we have to be able to manipulate space outside to give us an appreciation of space. And you have to go inside and get the ability to manipulate time in order to be successful.
Yes.
I remember listening to a guy on the space station, and he said he was staring out of the window one day, and he see this thing moving across in the window, and he says, "Well, that looked like something strange, you know." And he's still staring at it. He goes, and he calls his partner. He said, "Look at that thing moving across there." He says, and the guy looked at it, and he says, "That's a piece of dust moving across the window." And he said, "You know, you're right." He says, and then he realized that when you look into that space, you have no sense of depth perception because you have no references.
Yeah, yes, you can't reference it.
So unless you hear them kind of talk, you don't understand that when you're outside there in space, it's a whole different ball game from inside. One of the things that we don't appreciate is that the spinning of the earth and the movement of the earth around the sun and the movement of the sun and the earth and everything in another circle, that those set of spins creates our perception of space. Right?
Yes.
In the sense of the spinning. But not only does it create that, because the spinning moves in a certain way, it also creates a kind of synchronization of what we call time. Because it makes you wait.
Yes.
You have two different actions, and one goes faster than the other.
Yes.
So it makes you wait. So you get a perception of time. But the purpose of the creation is to create.
Yes.
And the only way you can create is if you look into your future. If you cannot perceive a future, you cannot create. In fact, people who have problems dealing with life are people who cannot change things. Let me explain. You could have a person and they have something happen to them when they're small. Might make them feel bad. So they grow up thinking that they're worthless. And
low self-esteem.
low self-esteem.
Yes.
And so they don't bother to plan anything. And you come along to them and you say, listen, you see that thing that you have there, take it and bring it out. Put it here. And change it. Change the reference. I'll give you an example. Guy comes to me and he says, I had it bad when I was small. Nobody never gave me anything. You know, they used to beat me and hide me up in a cupboard and I owe nobody nothing. And I say, all right. I say, so what has that done for you? He said, what do you mean it done for me? He says, nobody ain't doing that to me now. He said, nobody ain't doing that to my children. He said, nobody ain't doing that to my wife. He said, I controlling that and everybody have to be happy. I ain't letting that happen to nobody. He said, and you're successful? He said, yeah. He says, I ain't want to be poor again. He says, I have my business running and I'm making good money. He said, I say, well, so what bad happened to you? He said, just tell you, all the violence I had when I was young. I say, and what did the violence do to you? He said, it made me strong. And he stopped. I said, well, say that again, let me hear. He said, make me strong. I said, so because that make you strong. I said, so if you have a piece of steel and you want to turn it into a sword, into a nice sword, what do you do? He said, well, you'll take it and you'll shove it in the fire and you'll take it out and you'll pong it.
And shape it.
I said, when you finish pong it, you'll dip it in the water and you'll put it back in the fire and you'll beat it again. I said, when you beat it and pong it all the time, if it have malleability, it will turn into a fine sword. I say, it would seem that you have become a fine sword. Nobody can put anything on you. You're successful. You have a nice wife. You have nice children. So they lock you in the cupboard and they beat you
up. You had the ability to cut.
I had the ability to cut. Because as you say, I ain't taking no S from nobody.
That's right.
Right? So he said, when you watch me, he said, you're messing with my head, you know.
You think? You think?
I say, of course I'm messing with your head. I says, I can't understand why it is that at this point you're a powerful, successful human being because of all these bad things that happen to you. And you don't understand that you should get on. I say, what religion you belong to? He says, a Hindu. I say, oh God. I say, all right, who you running with? Hanuman, you know, Shiva, Saraswati, Lakshmi, Kali, who you running with? So he tell me. I said, well, go home, go down in the temple, carry a little offering, put it inside there, and kneel down and say, thank you. And when you find things going slow and you get bored, say, send some pressure over, shape me up a little bit. The sword getting dull, sharpen it up a little bit. He said, boy, you have a funny way of looking at life. I said, no. People never acquire wisdom unless it's under pressure. Put a bunch of people and give them everything. And what happens is they fall apart. They fall apart. So once you understand that, so I tell him, I say, you know what we've just done? You've taken your past, which you had framed in the wrong terms, and you brought it here, and you reframed it. I say, and now you'll put it into the future, so you have a reference point, and your reference point is one of only success. I was tested, and I was good. Now, if you understand that, you'll understand the story of Job, and why God sent the devil to beat him.
To test him, yes.
Because that was, in fact, his sword-making time.
That's right. And God allowed it and said, you could do whatever you want, just to kill him.
Not did he allow it? He purposely pushed it. Because he said and called the devil. And the important thing is the devil went into heaven. Same place he gets thrown out. They're full of what seems to be contradictions. But getting back to the point I'm making is that with the appreciation of space and being locked in time, and with the appreciation in the pineal gland of moving in time but being locked in space, right? It allows you a counterbalance. So the internal, with the planning and with the ability to form pictures and the ability to form your whole space, it allows you then to bring it out and create it. So you're following in the path of the Creator. You're becoming spiritual. Spirituality is the ability to create. Jesus says, let the dead bury the dead. In other words, if you stop creating, go and lie down and dead. That's right. Yes. You have no use to anybody.
Yeah. We talked about that in a previous program.
Right.
You know, this whole loss of passion and so on. And because we were born and made to create.
To create, right? And so the connection to your spirit, the connection to God, is through your pineal gland. It teaches you how to build space inside that space. And that space that you build inside there, because if you picturing yourself owning a house, you can't picture a flat picture like if it's on the wall. It will never be anything. It will never come to pass. You have to build that house in your head. You have to walk around in the house. You have to have the madam with you. You must have the madam inside the house. Because she will tell you what color it should be. Don't think you fixing that color. Or you want the master bedroom there. When you're busy saying that, she coming.
Oh, you have had that experience as well?
Yeah. 3 times. so when you're busy planning in your head and you have it going good, she'll creep inside your brain. And she said, when you put in the master bedroom, it's supposed to be when the sun coming up. And you say, why I didn't think about that? And she'll watch and say, because you're not a woman. But I mean, you know, inside that joking, you realize the seriousness of what you're saying. So that is why you begin to understand why the Pope has the pineal gland there. Without that pineal gland functioning properly, you have no communication to the heavens. That's your antenna. And that is why in all religions it's revered and it is called your third eye. It is the inside eye. It is the inside eye that allows you access to the heavens. Right? So once you understand that, you begin to understand that all this messing with this mercury and this aluminium, which is poison in it, and worse, this fluoride. And then you have glyphosate, which we're going to talk about, which also helps to calcify it. You begin to understand that we're doing such things is that we're slowly disconnecting ourselves from the source. And maybe that is why people are becoming more animalistic. Is that they're losing that connection to self, the internal self. And
it is so much exemplified in human behavior these days. I mean, you look at behavior on the roads, for example, and even in normal human interactions, and you see that kind of behavior come out, and you wonder why. It's not. I mean, it's a phenomenon that just seems so strange to us.
Yep. So we'll get back to our article.
Our substantive discussion
which now puts a whole
spin on it.
Extra spin on it.
Yes.
So that's why I say that when you start to talk about things and you begin to connect it, you begin to realize everything is connected.
That's right.
So nobody would make a connection between junk coming down the river, you trying to take some of the junk out, but you can't take out all the toxins and things inside it, and you drinking that, and that disconnecting you from your God. Or that you put mercury in your mouth and you find 5 years later that it's hard to pray. You can't get the kind of zest you will get long time. And there are some people come and say, I went and I talked to the God, I talked to the Lord, and he say, he organized in me. But they come and tell you, I used to do that, but now when I try to do it, I can't do it. I can't find it. And they don't understand that it is because of the toxicity that is around us that it is disconnecting us. And the priests and things that we have here, they don't know nothing about that. They think it's just a straight, simple thing. But you cannot disconnect your soul from your mind, from your emotions, from your body. They're all interconnected.
Yes.
And sometimes you have to look quite here to see what's going on here. And you have to look here to see why that's going on there. You know? I had a kid come to me once. And he was funny, and he had some kind of poisoning in his brain, was going funny, and he talking, and she said, well, I carried him to all the doctors, and they can't find nothing wrong with him, and they test him and things like that. So I said, what you just do? He said, well, I ain't like too much school, So sometimes I just miss school and things. I said, well, that is...
You're asking this of the kid now?
Yeah. I said, so what you just do when you ain't go to school? He said, well, they had this Rasta guy up the road, and he just run a little change on me. I said, why you just run a little change on you? He said, well, I just go up there, and he just burn copper wire. I said, oh, I said, what do you do? He said, well, I just help him stoke the fire. I said, I said, so you just be in the smoke. I said, how much time you just do that? He said, twice a week, sometimes. And I realized what I had here was a person who was highly toxic. Copper poisoning.
Yes.
And plastic stuff poisoning. So the problem is now how to try and detox that.
Yes, yes.
Right?
Yes.
To get him back to being normal. You realize it's right there in the society. So he wasn't only toxifying the boy, he was toxifying himself. He was probably toxifying the whole neighborhood. Burning that. He didn't think he was doing anything wrong because he burned in the copper for Jah. Jah provided for it. You understand? We don't have any laws about that, at least laws that you enforce. So the person who have to enforce the laws might be living in the street out down the road and say, you know, fella burning thing all the time up the road there. And then wanted to check what is he burning. Or sometimes you know what he burning and you don't make the connection. Because we don't have anything that teaches us how to make connection.
Yes.
And that's why we're in the problem that we're in.
The morass that we are in.
Yes. So we're talking about the aluminium accumulation. Remember we started talking about the sunlight and the role of sunlight.
I wanted to pick it up from
and we say that that without the human health, the sunlight is necessary for catalyzing the sulfate production. We will be deficient if we don't get enough sunlight. Specifically, the pineal gland plays an important role in the process. Specifically, the endothelial and neuronal nitric oxide synthesis, both of which are present in the pineal gland, produces sulfate through reduced sulfur sources catalyzed by the sun. So the first thing you have to be is eating sulfur-rich foods, which is one aspect of it. You know, there's something that old people used to do long ago, and we used to scoff at it. You got a goblet in the house.
Sorry.
And you're feeling a little funny, and the grandmother will tell you, go down in the pharmacy and buy some flowers of sulfur. You ever hear that?
No.
And they bring it, and they do so, and they sprinkle it in the goblet, and they drink that for a few days. Right? They add sulfur. Sulfur is necessary for production of a whole heap of hormones and things like that. Do you know that the insulin hormone, too long chain, is connected by a single strand of sulfur molecule? One single strand. You know, and you watch that and you say, if you don't have enough sulfur coming in, that person is not eating enough sulfur foods, garlic and things like that you get sulfur from. Then what happens is they have a shortage. They have a shortage right away. Your brain gets funny. Your ability to handle sugars get funny. And you could go on and on and on about all the things that you use that sulfur uses in the body. Maybe one of these days we'll do a check on that too. Right? So
outside of garlic, what are some of the sulfuric foods?
You're asking me now. Onions too.
Okay. Just looking at some of the natural sources that you may probably could get it from.
A lot of these the seasoning types thing, they tend to be very rich in that. Most things would have sulfur to a greater or larger extent, especially vegetables. We tend to walk in the grocery and buy a pack of this and a pack of that. You know, I stand in the grocery and I sometimes I'm horrified. You know, a pack of this, a pack of that, everything in a box. A bag of cakes, then a bag of fruit juice.
You know what? We become a society like that. You know, everything packaged for convenience.
But it's also packaged for death. Because God needs to say, and let there be anodized packs full of orange juice, so that humans make orange. And people would rather go in the grocery and buy this pack of thing that has been pasteurized and homogenized and deodorized and iced, and then when they finish add excess sugar to make it taste good, right? Then pack it in an aluminium pack.
It's modern convenience,
lined with plastic that have estrogen mimickers in it, and you give it to your children. You understand?
And we wonder why we have the problems that we have now.
And so when your child go and they open their little kit, they have little packs of juice.
Yes, it's all,
and
it's all compartmentalized.
I can hear you. One of the girls come from the office the other day, and she says, I have biscuits. You want some? I says, I ain't eating no flour. She says, I know. This is made with tofu. I say, oh? She says, yes. She bring it for me. So being the person I am, the first thing I do, I flip it over to read what in it.
Yes.
So it says bean curd. I say, okay. Salt, okay. This here, chicken powder. And MSG.
Did you read on after?
You read this? I said, what is chicken powder? She get red in the face, blue in the face. I say, I have one on you.
Yeah. Chicken powder.
She said, Doc, I didn't read it, you know. Yes. You see what happened? Right? So that is the problem that you have all the time. Chicken powder. Oh, that's probably somebody scraping up all the old things, crushing it up, and putting it and heating it, and turning it up powder, and then they put a whole heap of things to make it taste nice.
As if the chicken itself wasn't causing us enough problems.
Yes.
We had the chicken powder now to deal with. Amazing.
Oh, God. So, she says aluminum accumulation in the pineal gland over time will disrupt the sulfate supplies to the brain by interfering with the pineal gland's ability to make sulfate. High sun protection factor sunscreens are one way in which the body can accumulate not insignificant amounts of aluminum. Now that's a nice way of putting it, eh? Not insignificant amounts. That's one thing about scientists. When they want to tell you something drastic, they understate it. Not insignificant. It means it's poisoning your whole cell absolutely thoroughly, right? Through skin absorption, sunscreens contain aluminum nanoparticles, which are more dangerous than large-size aluminum particles and are highly destructive to the brain.
Yes.
Right? So we have a new technology going on around us that most of us, of course, are not aware of, called nanotechnology.
Yes.
Where they're grinding up things very, very fine, right? And they're adding it to stuff, not understanding the implications of what it will do, because everything has, the brain has a blood-brain barrier where certain things can't penetrate. The cell has a certain way, and you will see as we go along why that is very important. So a 2012 study found that nanoalumina destroyed mitochondria by severely depleting the ATP, the body's energy source. So ATP is the body's energy source. And your ATP cycle is CoQ10, D-ribose, L-carnitine, magnesium, that kind of stuff, right? And it forms a cycle that gives the cycle to the energy to the cells. Okay,
Krebs cycle,
right? So she says that what the nanoparticles do is they go in and they interfere with that Krebs cycle. And it induces autophagy and programs cell death in brain endothelial cells and decrease the expression of tight junction proteins, thereby contributing to elevated blood-brain barrier permeability. Put it in simple language. When you take this thing and it gets in there, it interferes with the cells. And you have this thing, because the brain is so sensitive, where the brain is very selective about what it lets come in, so that you maintain the integrity of the brain. But when you use this nanoparticle aluminum thing and you put it on your skin, it gets absorbed. And when it gets in there, it interferes with the cellular structure, so that permeability gets worse.
Yes.
So now you're taking in junk that normally wouldn't get in there, because I wish to have beautiful skin.
Indeed.
Or what I perceive to be beautiful skin. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Right? So he says the nanoparticles' effect were persistent and damaging. Thus, contrary to popular opinion, use of sunscreen is neither beneficial nor safe. Another myth destroyed, right? Dr. Seneff also notes that wearing sunglasses is also a terrible idea, because you shut off sunlight that you need
to go through
your body to keep your immune system healthy. So then she goes on and says that when they did some track and they looked at the public schools and the amount of sunlight that people were getting and they tracked it. So it was no fly-by-night thing, you know, they're doing their science. And they found that there was a distinct connection between the amount of sunlight that the children got and the amount of immunity that the children had and the amount of resistance that they had to memory deterioration. Right? Because she comes here and he says, one of the ways that the protective effect of sunlight exposure makes sense is recognizing the critical role that vitamin D plays in sulfate homeostasis. A study in mice found that activated vitamin D prevented sulfate wasting from the kidneys and the urine. So your vitamin D gets into the kidneys and helps to preserve the kidneys from dispelling the sulfate. In other words, recycling the sulfate back in. So the brain can get the sulfate to now take out the toxicity. Mice engineered to have defective vitamin D receptors always had vitamin D deficiency and had significantly reduced serum sulfate levels, which were associated with sulfate depletion in the skeleton. Children with autism have high sulfate in their urine and low serum sulfate levels, which clearly indicates that both generic sulfate deficiency and vitamin D deficiency. So what she's doing is making a plea that the children with autism should be given omega-3 oils, because omega-3 oils is what the body takes to make vitamin D. And that they should be put in the sunlight, because one of the things that it will do is raise the serum sulfate level in the brain, which would then make them less prone to the toxicity that they have and help to clean that out and help them to improve. Oh, man.
You want to say that again? I don't think some people might not have gotten it. So.
All right, let's go it again.
Break it down a little bit.
You have to take omega-3 oil.
Yes.
Right? So it means you have to throw away all your hydrogenated oil. The only oil you should have in your house is coconut oil, virgin olive oil, and flaxseed oil or good fish oil, which is you have to be very careful with. The flaxseed oil is good because it has a high level of omega-3. You could use it in your salads.
And you could use it to,
right? But besides that, when you drink it just ordinary or take it in a capsule and it gets into the system, that omega-3 oil, which is not only responsible for making vitamin D, is also responsible for your absorption of your calcium into your system, your magnesium, you could go on and on. But that vitamin D, right, gets into the kidneys and prevents the loss of the sulfate, heparan sulfate, through the kidneys. So the body can recycle it back, put it back into the system with the help of the vitamin D, so that the brain can get the toxicity cleaned out much better. So if you have an autistic child, you have to make sure it gets enough omega-3 oil and that it gets enough sunlight.
Yes, yes.
You think we got it this time?
Yeah. I would hope so.
All right. So the other thing that she talks about, she began paying attention to glyphosate. Remember we did a thing on glyphosate and genetically modified foods. And that glyphosate is causing a whole lack of absorption of certain minerals. We talk about the glyphosate allowing fungi to grow inside the plant in large amounts, and that is beginning to cross-infect human beings. So we're getting fungi from an excessive use of antibiotics. We're now going to get fungi from excessive use of glyphosate, plus other poisonings, right? Glyphosate disrupts the way the body manages sulfur, right? And could be likely to be, one of the comorbidities associated with autism. Specific comorbidities associated with with autism, Dr. Sennett found that glyphosate matched up almost perfectly. Both glyphosate and autism are associated with low melatonin, impaired sulfur metabolism, and low serum sulfate, low vitamin D, sleep disorders, disrupted gut bacteria, and more. Because glyphosate kills your gut bacteria. Genetically modified foods kills your gut bacteria. Without your gut bacteria, forget your immune system, forget your proper digestion, forget your making of excess vitamin Bs to keep you healthy, right? Glyphosate, already a very dangerous chemical on its own, causes aluminium to be more toxic. Not an elephant in the room,
yes.
right? Glyphosate and aluminium can be viewed as partners in crime, working synergistically with one another. This partnership plays out in several ways. Glyphosate preferentially kills beneficial bacteria in the gut, which allows the pathogens such as the Clostridium difficile to overgrow. Now, the Clostridium bacteria, right, not only does it lead to leaky gut syndrome, but C. difficile produces something called P-creosol, a phenolic compound which is toxic to other microbes via its ability to interfere with metabolism. C. difficile is one of the few bacteria able to ferment tyrosine into P-creosol. As it happens, P-creosol promotes aluminium uptake by cells, a known biomarker for autism. Sometimes you start to get a little technical.
Yeah, that's right.
So the technical people listening to it could get it. Because what you're saying is that the glyphosate kills the gut bacteria. The gut bacteria is very necessary for your health. And one of the things that the Clostridium does is that it interferes with the cell in such a way that it causes it to uptake even more aluminium. There's another thing that the Clostridium bacteria does, is that it eats iron. So people who have got large amounts of antibiotics, and it kills the gut bacteria, the good one, and the Clostridium falls, they're always anemic. And they go to the doctor, and what is the solution the doctor has for that? He gives them some iron.
Yes, indeed.
Right? So he hands them some iron. Boom. And he hands them some iron, and they take the iron, and the Clostridium bacteria say, food! And they eat up the food.
Yeah.
So the person, which causes more Clostridium bacteria. So they go back to the doctor, and the doctor finds that the person has gotten more anemic. So what does he do?
Gives
In
us
his logic, he gives
yes,
them more iron.
Yes.
And he cannot understand. So I have patients that come to me. They always come to me after they've gone to the doctors, right? After they've gone to the Western doctors.
Let me go buy my ears.
Right, yeah. And the one lady came the other day and she says, these are the pills I'm taking. And she had me. So I look in through, I see iron tablets. I say, okay. She said, I'm anemic. I look through again, I see another set of iron tablets. Different name.
Yeah.
Yeah? Pull it out.
Iron nonetheless.
I say, what is this? Yeah. She said, I don't know. I said, well, when I finished, she had 3 sets of iron tablets. I said, well, what happened? She said, well, my doctor gave me the iron tablets, and he sent me to the specialist.
Who gave me some more with a different
the specialist give up pills. So I say, did the specialist ask you what you was taking? She said, no, you just give me that. Right? And then that specialist sent her to somebody else who noticed that she was anemic and give her. So she was taking 3 sets of iron. And hear her complaint. I always constipated.
And you wonder why.
I says, you're not only constipated, you're also getting iron toxicity.
Yes.
I say to myself, it must have a whole heap of Clostridium bacteria inside there enjoying themselves, because she was still anemic. She was still anemic. So you realize that if you're going to try to fix, and I'm beginning to understand that a lot of the young people who are anemic, they're anemic not because something is wrong with them, because something is wrong with the gut.
Yes.
So you got to
fix the gut first.
You got to fix the gut. Yes. You got to get your good probiotics and put it in there and give it a few months.
Yes.
And sometimes you get people who follow it and you watch them just on the probiotic alone. So there's a probiotic called Primal Defense, made by Garden of Life, and they make that probiotic especially for things like that. So it has a special set of bacteria in it. And you watch people with skin problems and all kinds of little problems like that. After a few months, just get healed because of the replacement of the gut bacteria. So you begin to understand that gut bacteria doesn't play an important part in your health. It creates a super important part in your health. Right? So here she's talking about how the glyphosate interferes with your gut bacteria. And when it interferes with your bacteria, that the P-creosol is an important factor in kidney failure, which leads to aluminium retention in the tissues and eventually to dementia. So you have another trail again as to why you have a rise of dementia. Glyphosate also serves to increase aluminium toxicity by caging aluminium to promote entry into the body. So glyphosate promotes calcium uptake by voltage activated channels. There's a part of the system where in the introduction of minerals into a cell is assisted by voltage differences.
Yes.
You know, you get an attraction. Let me give you an idea. If you have potassium in your blood, because of the way how the potassium atom is made, it pushes the blood apart, so it thins the blood. If you have sodium in the blood, because of the way it's made up, it causes the blood to come together. So that's why the doctors tell you, don't eat too much sodium. It will cause the blood to clot, and you'll get a stroke, heart problems,
Yes, yeah.
all right, because it won't be able to carry enough oxygen. So you eat potassium, so which leads to a straight, simple statement. People who are vegetarians almost never ever get strokes, because vegetables are loaded in potassium.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
So anytime you get a stroke, immediately I could tell you that you're not eating potassium. You're not eating potassium. You're not eating vegetables.
Yeah.
You are a dumpling and saltfish man. and that dumpling and saltfish ain't have nothing inside it. You know, a little karaili or a little bodi or a little pak choy.
Nothing of the kind.
And you know, when you eat that dumpling and saltfish, everybody think, eat good, you know.
Yes, a
Belly
full.
full. we have such wrong ideas. You know, Trinidad food is real good for most all you to kill all you. And you know, we don't discuss these things, and we don't understand if that knowledge got out, and people understood that they had to eat that in order not to get strokes. So when a person do so and they realize that one hand get a little numb the other day and then it went away, and they notice they feel a little stiff in the mouth. Is the body telling you? Hey,
yes.
We come in,
yes,
the train come in,
Yeah.
and get to your doctor, or start eating things, you know, plenty garlic and things like that, and stuff to help thin the blood, and also stuff with plenty potassium, so you start replacing it in the blood, which will raise, let me get technical here, which will raise the zeta potential of the blood, which is the ability of the blood to stay liquid and take away that kind of problems.
Yes.
You know, but we don't do that. So aluminium now, because the glyphosate promotes calcium uptake, right? It allows aluminium to enter, because aluminium enters as a calcium mimetic. It has same kind of voltage, so it gets to the calcium and it goes in, right? Therefore, aluminium then promotes calcium loss from the bones, contributing to the pineal gland calcification, because it messes around with the calcium in the bones and the body, right? When the body has calcium and they don't know what to do with it, it is deposited all over the place. Here she's talking about the pineal gland calcification. You could also talk about cataracts, because a cataract is a calcium deposit.
Yes.
You know, which leads you to a nice question. You know, the other day a guy came to me and he says, I have cataracts and there's no cure for it. I says, who tell you that? Right? He says, my doctor. I said, well, let me tell you something. I say, calcium exists in your blood in 10 parts. It can only exist in 10 parts if you have 6 parts of phosphorus to hold it in the blood. So phosphorus is very important for the balance of calcium in your body. I say, so if you have a calcium deposit like a cataract in your eye and you want to get rid of it, what you would do is go and buy some liquid phosphate and start taking it, and the excess phosphorus will then start taking up all the loose calcium all over the place and pulling it back into the blood, including the cataract in your eyes.
Yes.
So after a few months, the cataract will disappear. He says, oh, just send him to buy some phosphates or to eat foods that are high in phosphorus, right? So bringing melatonin back into the discussion, Glyphosate interferes with what is known as the Shikimate pathway. Although humans do not have a Shikimate pathway, our gut flora does. We depend on our gut flora to supply us with essential amino acids and many other things. Disruption of the Shikimate pathway in our gut results in the depletion of tryptophan, which is the sole precursor to melatonin. So she's saying that your gut bacteria helps to break down your complex proteins and give you amino acids. That is one of the things that it does and does very efficiently. And you have essential amino acids. Tryptophan is very essential. Now, tryptophan, besides being a precursor to melatonin, right, is also one of the amino acids that produces calm. L-tryptophan is also necessary for the production of the hormone serotonin, which is the feel-good hormone. Which is also necessary, the serotonin in the gut, in order to make the peristalsis of the large intestine move. In other words, constipation. So you don't want to sit down and go, and nothing moves. If everything is working right, all you do is just sit down. And when you sit down, you get yourself a newspaper and you read. And then it becomes very pleasurable because the serotonin is doing its thing. And since it lets go a lot of serotonin, which moves the tooths out, when you finish, you have this excess serotonin in the stomach. So you get up and you say, that was good. And I'm sure everybody will agree with me. Not understanding that God is a good God.
Indeed.
He make tooth passage very enjoyable by making serotonin. Now, the serotonin is interfered with, the melatonin is interfered with because you're interfering with the L-tryptophan. Interfering with the gut bacteria. So you begin to understand how all these cascades work. That is really the whole subject of this thing. I don't expect a lot of people outside there to understand the technicality of what we're doing, but when you break it down simple and you say, when you're eating GMO foods and we have glyphosate and we're spraying it all over the place, and you have countries that banning it now. Ban it outright. Russia ban it. They say no GMO. We don't want no GMO for 10 years here. We're going to watch what happens to other people. Right? Because the alarm bell going up.
That's right.
So one can only predict that the power of the United States is going to decrease very rapidly because of the food poisoning that is going on. Right? And any other country, including us, that subscribes to this modern buy it in a pack and put some water in it and eat it. You know? So that kind of follows step by step. So we also need melatonin to reduce the heavy metal toxicity. Where supplies of melatonin are adequate, melatonin will bind with aluminium, cadmium, copper, iron, lead, and reduce their toxicity. One of these days we'll talk about high levels of ferritin in older people, which causes toxicity in the liver because they have too much iron inside there. The whole thing gets really, really fascinating, and what you use to take that out, and what are the side effects when you see it. You know? Wow.
Amazing.
It's amazing when you start how your head
goes.
That's right, boom, boom, boom. Right? So she says Roundup is #1 herbicide in the USA and increasingly around the world. Unfortunately, its use has increased further in lockstep with Roundup ready genetically engineered crops, including corn and soya. Right? And then we come to the end of it, where we say that Dr. Senef believes that when children are overexposed to glyphosate, especially through the consumption of genetically modified foods, which are widely prevalent in the American diet, also widely prevalent in the Trinidad diet, right? Because the other thing about it is we don't grow our own vegetables. We don't. No. And so we buy a whole
We import a significant amount.
Right?
Yes.
Now, there's another thing that happens. You ever notice that if you buy lettuce from abroad and you take it out and you put it on the shelf, it doesn't rot you. it turns to water and runs, kind of stinky water and run onto the. That's because that thing has been nuked. They say to preserve it so that it could travel long distances, really so it could stay months in the refrigerator.
Yes, yes.
So when you eat in the things that you think look like it get picked yesterday,
yes.
it ain't so, you know, partner.
Yes.
Right? Is they pick
and
it,
it's nice and crunchy.
and they nuke it, and they put it at exact temperature inside there, and they
So
could
that-
keep that inside there for 6 months, 9 months.
Yes.
And then when it comes out, you go and package it, and when it comes to you,
You look fresh.
you say, look, why don't we have vegetables like that? Just as how they just take the meat, that dark brown and really nasty looking,
Spray it.
cut it and spray this
so
red
red
spray on it. When you look at it, it's swear like the meat still bleeding.
Yeah. That fresh boy, you know, come.
The meat about a year old. And it come out, and they spray it with this red stuff. You have a guy in the back. He's
That's his job.
make it look fresh,
Yes.
man. Yeah. And then you know the other thing
Put
that
it
they
out.
do is when the meat stay out and it starts smelling, they carry it in the back and you dip it in chlorine water to clean out the smell, right? And when you finish and you dip in chlorine water, you wash
Put
it.
back your red spray.
You send it to the
Put it out again.
Send it to the fresh man.
Yes.
We live in a world of illusions, and we eat this stuff and we think that it is healthy. I think that if you was to take a fresh yard chicken and kill it, first of all, you can't kill it in front of most people. Cut off the head and let it bleed and think, oh, I can't see that. They go eat it.
But they can't see.
Right? And don't tell them about pick on the feathers. They don't know where to start at all.
That's it.
And that,
You don't even have to throw a little hot water on it.
yes. Then when you finish, you can see you're well bred. Right? You have to take it and put it over the fire and burn out the little
yes.
hairs
Yeah, a
and
little
rub it off.
singe of the
And then you finish, you cut
yes.
that out. Most people, if you give them fresh chicken that you just killed to eat, they can't eat it, you know. How this thing tasting so funny?
Yes.
They don't know what fresh food tastes like.
No.
They don't. Right? They are accustomed eating junk. So,
Well, I think that's why we got to put a cap on it for
Wait,
today.
what?
It's a good
Finish?
point. Yes,
Whoa.
yes.
so
Time
it
goes
says
by.
under optimal conditions, the pineal gland can synthesize sulfate, stimulate it by sunlight, and deliver it with melatonin via melatonin sulfate to the brain. Aluminium, mercury, and glyphosate are working synergistically to derail this process. And sunlight, exacerbated by the misguided use of sunscreens containing aluminium nanoparticles, is further contributing to the pathology. The writer of the article has a book on bugs, bowel, and behavior. I think we should dig that out.
Yes, indeed.
See what happens,
Yeah,
right?
sounds interesting.
So I trust that people kind of grasp what it is you're trying to say.
Properly elucidated.
We covered it with a little humor.
Yes,
and,
that's right.
And a little
Yes,
interconnection.
you got to interject a little.
Everything is
humor into it.
interconnected.
Yeah, and yes, to show the thing. And some of the things that we, really, that we're doing wrong, when you think about it, it's really quite hilarious.
Yes.
So thanks to our viewers for joining us for yet another program of Empower Health. As always, I mean, if you have any questions, comments, and any gray areas that you need a little shedding some light on, just drop us a line, docmyers@yahoo.com, and we'll be all too pleased to pass it on to you on the program.
Next week, we will talk about how to cure Alzheimer's with food.
Great.
Little discovery that I came upon. Guy did some work,
Yeah.
where he got his research from, and we will discuss that.
Great.
That I think is really important with the amount of Alzheimer's people we have.
That's right.
Because he said that he managed to cure his father in 21 days.
Amazing.
Right?
Yes.
With food.
So thank you very much, and do join us for another program of Empower Health.